When Jayne Mansfield attended a high-end Hollywood party in 1957, she wore a dress so low-cut that the whole event was captured on video. For newspapers, the photos were too hot. Later, during a marketing stunt, she wore a bikini that unintentionally slipped off, making headlines. However, they weren't errors. They were the strategic actions of a genius in PR. We're exposing the startling truth about the bombshell who made Marilyn Monroe appear subdued, 55 years after her untimely death. On April 19, 1933, Jayne Mansfield was born in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, as Vera Jane Palmer. Herbert Palmer, her father, practiced law and played music. Vera Jeffrey Palmer, her mother, had taught at a school. Before catastrophe hit in 1936, life appeared to be steady. Herbert passed away from a heart attack when he was driving the family home. Jayne had just turned 3. She would later claim that the day brought about a transformation inside herself. In 1939, her mother got married again. Jayne's stepfather was Harry Piers, a sales engineer. Jayne spent the most of her youth in Dallas, Texas when the family relocated there. Her mom was stern and encouraged her to succeed, wanted Jayne to concentrate on her studies, but Jayne had other aspirations. She played the violin, performed in front of her home, and attended singing and dancing classes. She aspired to be a star even as a small child. She was gifted in languages as well. She took Spanish and German classes at Highland Park High School. She was intelligent, but that wasn't all she wanted to be known for. Shirley Temple was her idol, and aspired to fame. She participated in local theater plays and beauty pageants in an attempt to get attention. One day, she will be the biggest celebrity in Hollywood, she assured anybody who would listen. Her life changed at the age of 17. In 1949, she went to a party on Christmas Eve and met Paul Mansfield. The two quickly fell in love. Their marriage took place on May 6, 1950. Jayne was 3 months along in her pregnancy. She gave birth to her daughter, Jayne Marie Mansfield, on November 8 of that year. She didn't let motherhood slow her down. After attending Southern Methodist University to take acting programs, she and Paul relocated to Austin to attend the University of Texas. Jayne just grew more determined. Despite Paul's hopes that marriage and a child would alter her goals, Paul was drafted into the Korean War in 1952. Jayne remained behind to work and study while raising their daughter. Jayne Mansfield returned to Dallas in 1953 and began taking acting classes with Baruch Lumet. He established the Dallas Institute of Performing Arts and was the father of filmmaker Sidney Lumet. He raised Rip Torn and Jayne like his own children, teaching them privately. In April 1954, he also assisted her in getting her first screen audition at Paramount. Jayne, Paul and their daughter, Jayne Marie, relocated to Los Angeles in the same year. To provide for her family, she accepted any employment she could find. She worked as a photographer at Esther Williams Trail's restaurant, taught dancing, served popcorn at the Stanley Warner Theater, and sold candies at a movie theater. She also worked as a part-time model at the Blue Book Model Agency, but her true passion was acting, and she never wavered in her resolve. Jayne won a number of beauty pageants while attending the University of Texas in Austin, such as Miss Photo Flash, Miss Magnesium Lamp, and Miss Fire Prevention Week, but she wasn't drawn to all of the titles. Miss Roquefort Cheese didn't sound right, so she declined. For the same reason, she turned down Miss Prime Rib in 1957. She had begun performing in small theaters even before she made her Hollywood debut. She co-starred with Paul in 10 Nights in a Barroom and The Slaves of Demon Rum when she was in Dallas. While in Camp Gordon, Georgia, she also starred in the movie Anything Goes. She won her first major theatrical role in Death of a Salesman on October 22, 1953, when Paul was away serving in the military. Lumet oversaw the Knox Street Theater presentation. She competed in the Miss California pageant at UCLA. She won the local round, while concealing her marital status, but she subsequently withdrew. Entering the Hollywood industry was not simple. Her curves were seen negatively by certain advertisers. As a result, she even lost a commercial for General Electric. She tried out for Warner Brothers and Paramount in 1954. She acted out a scene from Joan of Arc for casting director Milton Lewis at Paramount. A week later, he invited her back and warned her that she was squandering her evident abilities. She sang the 7-year itch piano scene this time. They informed her she needed to go blonde since they weren't impressed. Warner Brothers responded similarly, but she persisted. She had her first acting role on CBS in Lux Video Theater that same year. She played a little part in the episode An Angel Went AWOL, sitting at a piano and saying a few lines. Although it wasn't revolutionary, it paid $300 or almost $4,000 in today's currency. Meanwhile, Playboy was starting to gain popularity. Early pieces on Jayne, Marilyn Monroe, Betty Page and Anita Ekberg contributed to the magazine's prominence when Hugh Hefner started it in December 1953. Jayne received the title of Playmate of the Month in February 1955. Both her career and Playboy's readership grew as a result of her presence in the magazine. Later on, she appeared in the Playboy calendar. She put her hands over her breasts. She was featured on Playboy in February of 1955, 1958, and 1960. Not everybody was in agreement. Paul Mansfield requested custody of their daughter in August 1956. Jayne's Playboy photographs, he said, made her an unsuitable mother. She didn't let the controversy stop her. Her 1955 pictorial was reproduced in the magazine in 1964. Later issues of Playboy, such as Centerfolds of the Century in January 2000 and the Playboy Portfolio of Sex Stars in December 1965, continued to include her photos. A one role that altered everything marked the beginning of Jayne Mansfield's path to fame. She portrayed Rita Marlowe in Will's popular Broadway parody of Hollywood's fixation with stardom, Spoil Rock Hunter, in 1955. She had the ideal platform to display her ability because the play ran for 444 performances. She was more than just another blonde beauty, she was utterly mesmerizing while having a keen sense of humor and a way of mocking her own appearance. Audiences were captivated by her, and critics adored her. In 1956, 20th Century Fox signed her to a 6-year deal after being impressed with her performance. In 1957, Will's triumph was spoiled in the movie Rock Hunter, under Frank Tashlin's direction. In her role as Rita, Mansfield brought the same blend of comedy and self-parody that helped the Broadway production succeed. The film directly criticized Hollywood's fixation on fame and beauty, turning it into something more than a joke. Mansfield was well aware of her actions. She demonstrated that she was aware of the joke while also enhancing her reputation. Fox even promoted her as a king-sized Marilyn Monroe, positioning her as Monroe's direct rival. Mansfield, however, was more than a replica. She was unavoidable due to her distinct style and presence. She had already demonstrated her ability to carry a picture with The Girl Can't Help It 1956, which was also directed by Tashlin prior to Rock Hunter. Originally intended as a rock and roll parody, musical comedy has become one of the genre's most recognizable displays. Some of the biggest names in music, such as Little Richard, Fats Domino, Gene Vincent and the Platters, were included in the movie. It was more than a film. It turned into a rock culture time capsule from the 1950s. Mansfield portrayed Jerry Jordan, a reluctant celebrity who was forced into the spotlight by her lover, a gangster. It could as well have been another part for a stupid blonde. But she was more than that to Jerry. She added wit, charm, and a hint of knowing sarcasm to the role. She proved she could compete with Monroe at the box office when the picture became a huge smash and made more money than Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953. Early on in the movie, there was one of the most well-known scenes. Men actually halt in their tracks to watch Mansfield as she goes down the street. It turned into one of her career's most recognizable sequences and was constantly copied in popular culture. Mansfield was at her best by 1957. She defeated Carol Baker and Natalie Wood to win the Golden Globe for New Star of the Year that year. Her outstanding performances in The Wayward Bus and The Girl Can't Help It were honored with the trophy. Hollywood had already determined what type of actress she was, but it should have led to more serious jobs. For exposure, she embraced the blonde bombshell persona, but it also held her back. She had more than simply a lovely face. Mansfield knew 5 languages and had an IQ of 163, but the business was more interested in her stats. She desired to demonstrate her superiority. She had a unique opportunity to display her dramatic range in The Wayward Bus, which was based on John Steinbeck's book, portrayed burlesque performer Camille Oakes, who was attempting to flee her past. She performed with modest tenderness and reduced the ostentatious gestures. When another traveler discovers a story about Camille in a tabloid, it's one of the most impactful moments in the movie. Mansfield played it with restraint, allowing the emotion to develop in her expression rather than responding with forceful actions. Critics took note. Mansfield was the star of the movie. Even if Joan Collins was the technical lead, Hollywood didn't take advantage of her, even though she shown that she could handle important parts. She was driven back into comedies that bolstered rather than challenged her public persona after The Wayward Bus. Jayne Mansfield thrived on attention. She was brave, daring, and prepared to disobey all the rules in order to maintain her fame. Sometimes, though, that meant going too far. From startling Hollywood to legal issues to personal tragedies that made news, her career was full with scandal. She became the first well-known American actress to appear in a sound picture in the nude, in 1963. Although Promises only included 3 topless moments that lasted a little more than a minute, the impact was felt for a lot longer. Since the 1930s, Hollywood has adhered to stringent censorship regulations, and those lines were broken by Mansfield's choice. Her career was already having trouble at the point. In the late 1950s, she was a big celebrity thanks to Will's success Spoil Rockhunter and The Girl Can't Help It, but her fame was waning. Many thought she accepted the position in order to remain current. The movie wasn't the only source of dispute. Playboy released backstage pictures of Mansfield on set, which included pictures of her baring her breasts. The consequences were immediate. In June 1970, Hugh Hefner was accused of obscenity. The case demonstrated the nation's division over morality and nudity, but it resulted in a mistrial. In the meanwhile, the movie generated money when it was shown despite being prohibited in a number of locations. Critics were critical, but it demonstrated that Mansfield could still garner attention. Her choice to go naked was later described by Roger Ebert as a sign of desperation. Promises was a commercial triumph, but it didn't help her career. Rather, it increased the debate surrounding her. She ran into legal issues that same year as a result of her nightclub appearances. She was arrested for indecent exposure in Burlington, Vermont. She had shifted her concentration from Hollywood movies to live performances by that point. The purpose of these performances was to maintain her position as a sex icon. While wearing skimpy costumes, she sang, joked, and engaged audiences. Her most well-known ensemble was a gold mesh dress that just covered her pubic region and nipples with sequins. Began to call her a few sequins and Jayne Mansfield. Although not everyone was impressed, audiences adored her performances. Her performances were criticized for being crude and unprofessional, with some claiming that she depended more on shock than skill. Nevertheless, the controversy just increased her notoriety. Her weekly income was up to $23,000, or almost $236,000 today. Mansfield was indifferent to the opinions of others. She continued to be aware that her name remained in the headlines due to controversies. Mansfield's name was more associated with controversies than with achievement in the middle of the 1960s. She was frequently likened to Marilyn Monroe and was one of Hollywood's biggest bombshells. However, Mansfield embraced the absurd, in contrast to Monroe, who struck a balance between sex appeal and serious parts. Regardless of the source, she thrived on attention. And the controversies only grew more significant as her life became more chaotic. Like her Hollywood career, Jayne Mansfield had an equally colorful personal life. During her 3 marriages, she experienced grief, controversy, and love. In 1950, at the age of 17, she entered into her first marriage. At first, public relations specialist Paul Mansfield appeared to be encouraging. However, as Jayne's goals expanded, the marriage began to deteriorate. In pursuit of fame, she relocated to California, and Paul charged her with adultery. It was a messy divorce in 1958. He also attempted to prove she was an unsuitable mother, by using her semi-naked Playboy images. He wanted complete custody of Jayne Marie, their daughter. However, the court rejected his arguments. In the same year, Jayne wed Mickey Hargitay, an actress and bodybuilder. They appeared to be the ideal Hollywood pair to the general public. Together, they had 3 children: Mariska, who would go on to become a well-known actress, Miklas Jr., and Zoltan. However, behind the scenes, things weren't quite as they seemed. Both sides accused one another of cheating. Their marriage began to deteriorate after Jayne had an affair with Italian producer Enrico Bomba. In an attempt to get financial power over her, Jayne even accused Mickey of kidnapping one of their children during their 1964 divorce. Jayne married director Matt Cimber shortly after. He said he would support her career. However, their connection quickly became poisonous. She battled alcoholism, had several extramarital affairs, and even admitted to Cimber that Nelson Sardelli, her ex, was the only guy she had ever genuinely loved. By 1966, when they split up, Jayne's career was in ruins. She has performed in low-budget burlesque performances after appearing in Hollywood movies. Even bad was her private life. People around her began to worry because she was in a risky relationship with her lawyer, Sam Brody. Jayne cherished her role as a mother, despite everything. Had 5 children: Antonio from her marriage to Cimber, 3 from her first marriage with Mickey, and Jayne Marie from her first marriage. She previously declared that her greatest delight was becoming a mother. She also sewed clothing for them during her few calm times. However, juggling family and celebrity wasn't simple. She was accused of neglecting their daughter by Paul Mansfield. Similar statements were made by others close to her later in life. The children were raised in a nomadic lifestyle, around by photographers, and caught up in their mother's tumultuous relationship. By the mid-1960s, things were getting out of control. Jayne was abusing LSD, diet pills, and heavy drinking. She started acting erratically. Some even said she let her oldest daughter to be abused by Sam Brody. Her children, however, have always praised her as a kind mother in spite of everything. Mariska Hargitay has discussed how her own life was influenced by her mother's vigor and fortitude. Then the catastrophe struck, which altered everything. Jayne was murdered instantaneously in 1967 when she and Sam Brody were in a vehicle with 3 of her children when they collided with the rear of a truck. All 3 children miraculously survived. Although they did not sustain any bodily injuries, they would always be emotionally scarred. After her 3 marriages, Jayne's romantic life continued. She was connected to Bobby Darin, Peter O'Toole, and Clint Eastwood, and even the founder of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey. However, her purported romance with President John F. Kennedy was one of the most startling rumors. She was allegedly envious of Marilyn Monroe's friendship with him, which is why she sought him. In the early 1960s, she set up encounters with JFK with the assistance of actor Peter Lawford. Jayne boasted about it, in contrast to Monroe's silence. She even made fun of Marilyn for it, at events in Hollywood. Some claim that after a few meetings, JFK showed little interest in her. Some others think there was more to the tale. Additionally, there were reports that she had dated both Joseph P. Kennedy, Sr., and Robert F. Kennedy. Jayne became apprehensive after Monroe's death in 1962. She expressed her worry that she would have a similar situation. She met the founder of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, in 1966. Rumors circulated about their relationship, and when tragedy occurred, many people started to question whether anything more sinister had been involved. When Mansfield first met LaVey, she was attending a film festival in San Francisco. She seemed to be as attracted by him as he was by her. Soon after, pictures of them together surfaced in the press. She was referred to as the High Priestess of LaVey. Some people thought it was just for show. LaVey had a reputation for being theatrical, and Mansfield enjoyed attention. Others, however, weren't so certain. He considered her to be a strong woman, and she referred to him as a genius. One thing was evident, yet their connection remained a mystery. Headlines followed them everywhere. Mansfield was then seeing her lawyer and alleged fiancé, Sam Brody. They had a tumultuous relationship. Many people thought Brody dominated her because he was violent. He wasn't liked by Levy. He told Mansfield that Brody was going to hurt him. Then things became more sinister. According to reports, Levy cursed Brody, stating that he would perish within a year if Mansfield remained with him. She didn't pay attention. She remained at Brody's side regardless of her belief in the curse. The catastrophes started at that point. The first one was a bad dream. Mansfield's 6-year-old son, Zoltan, was attacked by a lion on November 23, 1966, in the California Animal Park jungle in USA. He required brain surgery due to the severity of his injuries. Some thought the curse had already started. In the meanwhile, Brody began to get involved in auto accidents. He was involved in at least 6 collisions over a period of many months. He frequently had Mansfield in the car, and the risks appeared to increase with each trip. Those who had previously scoffed at the notion of a curse began to question whether something worse was taking place. The evening of June 29, 1967, followed. It began like every other night. She had just left a show in Biloxi, Mississippi, at Gus Stevens' Supper Club. She was on her way to New Orleans for a TV appearance after that. She was accompanied by her 3 kids, her driver, Ronnie Harrison, and her boyfriend, Sam Brody, Mickey Jr., Zoltan, and 3-year-old Mariska Hargitay. The 1966 Buick Electra 225 was speeding along US Route 90, with the kids dozing in the rear seat. Early in the morning, at about 2:25 a.m., when the vehicle approached Slidell, Louisiana, a huge vehicle was slowing up ahead. Over the road, a dense fog cloud had formed. It was no ordinary fog. It resulted from nearby pesticide spraying. Before the driver could respond, the Buick's visibility plummeted, collided with the trailer's rear end. It had a terrible effect. The truck fell beneath the automobile. Ronnie Harrison, Sam Brody, and Jayne Mansfield were all slain at once. Even the Chihuahua that had been in the front seat, owned by Mansfield, all 3 of the kids in the rear, survived the collision with only minor wounds. Somehow, Hollywood was stunned. However, this catastrophe did more than just garner media attention. It permanently altered car safety. As a result of the accident, semi-trucks now have metal bars on the back. Today, these are referred to as Mansfield bars. They stop vehicles like hers from slipping beneath trucks. The industry had to reconsider road safety after her tragedy. However, a troubling rumor also spread along with the announcement. In the incident, many thought Mansfield had been beheaded. Photographs taken at the site are probably where this rumor originated. Blonde hair was visible all over the debris. Though the fact was different, the worst was assumed. In the impact, the wig she was wearing flew off. She passed away after serious head trauma, according to the official coroner's findings. She was not beheaded, but her skull had been crushed, and a portion of her cranium had been ripped away. Nevertheless, the rumor gained momentum, appearing in films and novels, such as 1996's Crash. Her children carried the loss with them for the rest of their lives. The youngest, Mariska Hargitay, grew up with a scar on her skull from the incident. Her life was impacted by the catastrophe in ways she wouldn't completely comprehend for years. She succeeded in law enforcement's special victims section before becoming an actor. She turned into a trauma victim advocate. Although she made it into something worthwhile, the agony of losing her mother never went away, and a woman whose influence on public safety and pop culture endured. She was omnipresent when she was at her best. She was featured in almost 2,500 newspaper photos, with more than 122,000 lines of print devoted to her between September 1956 and May 1957 alone. Her command of attention was unparalleled, even in an era of glitzy celebrities. Her publicist, James Byron, frequently assisted in the meticulous planning of every aspect of her public persona. Mansfield understood how to keep the cameras rolling, whether it was with a bold ensemble, a well-planned wardrobe mishap, or a memorable presence at a star-studded event. At a dinner gathering in April 1957, in honor of Sophia Loren, she had one of her most well-known moments. Mansfield became the focus of attention as soon as she arrived wearing a revealing dress, and leaned forward, as the cameras flashed. One of the most well-known pictures in Hollywood history is the one where Loren is seen glaring at Mansfield's cleavage. This was no accident. She ensured that the world would never forget her, because she understood the power of a single moment. Mansfield, however, was more than simply a tabloid star. She had a significant influence on fashion trends, especially those pertaining to bikinis. Bikinis were still considered risqué in the 1950s, and only the bravest ladies wore them. Mansfield worked with celebrities like Brigitte Bardot and Marilyn Monroe to alter that impression. She frequently donned bikinis in movies, photo sessions, and live performances, transforming them into glamorous and self-assured icons. The leopard print bikini she wore throughout her stage appearances became one of her most recognizable outfits. Additionally, she had no qualms with using bikinis for publicity. She donned a somewhat too small red bikini to a press event for the movie Underwater in 1955. The top of a pool fell off when she dived in. Her celebrity was further enhanced by the ensuing media frenzy. This type of daring action helped establish bikinis as a popular fashion item and kept her in the public eye. Bikinis were widely worn by the 1960s and came to represent modernism and freedom. Mansfield had been instrumental in that change. Few people were fully aware of Jayne Mansfield's other side, too. The woman with an IQ of 149 was hidden under the naive blonde facade. English, French, Spanish, German, and Italian were the 5 languages she spoke with ease. After learning the first 3 in high school, she went on to learn Italian and German. Hollywood was not really interested in showcasing her extreme intelligence. She was originally viewed by the studios as a sex symbol, and then as a thinker. She knew this very well. She once said, "They're more interested in 40-21-35, when questioned about it." She might have capitalized on her brilliance, citing her well-known body proportions, but she understood that her popularity came from portraying the vivacious blonde. Knowing that audiences expected her to embellish the persona, she did so at times. She would alternate between showing off her sense of humor and embracing the persona that had made her famous during interviews. Even when the world failed to look past her appearance, she was still in charge of her own story. Jayne Mansfield was more than simply a famous actress. She was a trendsetter, a strategist, and a lady whose influence extended well beyond the movie industry. Her influence endures to this day, whether it was by influencing road safety regulations, fashion trends, or the way celebrities exploited exposure.